like to say it was through clear career planning and pathways on my own. So that's not at all what happened.
And I would say you're lying.
Yeah, totally. It was a complete mess.
Today's guest is Jonathan Bennett, an entrepreneur, longtime board director, and trusted advisor to leaders at every stage of their journey. After serving in the C-suite of a major hospital, Jonathan built a management consulting firm that grew to serve more than 200 organizations across the country before he successfully exited the business in 2021. Now he focuses on mentoring and advising executives and boards, helping them navigate high-stakes decisions, build accountable and resilient cultures, and lead with clarity through change. So welcome to this week's episode of the Badass Leaders Podcast, where I, Gill Nelms, sit down with industry experts for candid conversations about the challenges and joys of leadership. Be sure to hit subscribe so you do not miss an episode. Now let's dive in and get ready to scale your company, grow your brand, and unlock your full badass potential. Well, listeners, as I said in the intro, I have Jonathan Bennett here with us. Hey, Jonathan, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us why you're with us today?
Yeah, so thanks for having me, Angela. It's great to be here. My name's Jonathan Bennett. I'm a leadership advisor. I'm an independent board director, a founder and entrepreneur, and I like to help folks with really hard things that they're facing in their career and their businesses. And it's a real privilege to do the kind of work that I do.
Oh, I love the statement where you said, I like to help people with really hard things, because we forget that everything that is great, well, actually, I'm not sure if you can see it in my background. You can kind of see a little bit of it, but I made this sign about 12 years ago, and it's off of that quote from A League of His Own where Tom Hanks says, it's supposed to be hard. If it were easy, everyone would do it. So yeah. I'm glad that we're both in the spirit of wanting to do hard things.
Totally. I mean, it's why, people call me and they say, oh, I think I have a Jonathan problem. To me, that's just music to my ears, and I love it when referrals come in with that. I was talking to my friend and she said, look, I think I've got a Jonathan problem, so I don't even know what that means. And I'm like, I do. It's good. You're in the right place.
Okay, well, I have to ask, what is your definition of a Jonathan problem?
Oh, usually when it's like thorny and it's both a business problem and there's some personal stuff going on underneath. So I'll can unpack the businessy part, game it out. That's the advisor part of me, the management consultant background that I have. I can, we can game it out and figure out a way through. But usually there's a reason why we're there. Something that makes us stuck, or something that we're, that we find confronting on a personal and kind of deeper level. And usually I can hold some good space and using, coaching tools and other ways of getting folks to open up and reflect on their behavior, their patterns, the things that work for them and that don't work for them, so we can find ways to break through and make things easier.
So I love this personal problem piece, because I'm really big. One of our core values at the AGN group is getting to know humans as humans. And one of the things that I see a lot of individuals who are in leadership positions struggle with is they see the person as an output and not as an actual human being, and understanding the impact of those personal things that we have there. How did you transition into that? Because I think that's a very unique skill that I would love to see more, especially of the generation coming up. I would love to see more of them have those types of skills.
I'd like to say it was through clear career planning and pathways on my own. So that's not at all what happened.
And I would say you're lying.
Yeah, totally. It was a complete mess. I came up, I have an English degree, so I was very interested, I think, in psychology and storytelling, and ended up in a kind of corporate communications, made my way into general management, and then became an entrepreneur. And it was through, that sort of 25 years that I became really attuned to the way that we as humans show up at work, and what it is that allows us to make good decisions, that allows us to be with people, that allows us to be authentic and, create space for one another to do good work. And that became really fascinating to me. And after I sold my company, I was like, I think that that's where I want to go. I want to help leaders be better at what they do. And to me, that's more than just, solving imposter syndrome. I think it's like allowing you to walk alongside folks as they go and they do their work, but attach it to what is sitting underneath it. And that is, who we are, as you say, like as humans, as people, and all of the things that made us who we are, we bring to work with us. And it doesn't mean we have to unpack the bag and make workplace, like therapy and messy. But it does mean we need to pay attention to it. It does mean that we need to check in with ourselves in that difficult meeting and wondering why we're being triggered by that person across the table. Is it really that they're asking for something that's so difficult? Or is that just something that is, a part of what made you the person that you are today, and that kind of tone or that kind of request or the way that person is being is actually just bringing up something inside you that is from long ago.
I love this on both sides of the table, I'll say. And it is because I think when you understand this as a human and as a leader, it is one of the greatest gifts that can be given to you. Because I know when I was younger, if someone behaved in a certain way, in my mind, it was like, they don't like me, I've underperformed, why are they being mean to me? All of these things, right? And then as I moved through life, I suddenly realized, okay, first off, it probably has nothing to do with me, what's happening, right? There's an underlying challenge that we need to figure out what that underlying piece is. And it's allowed me, to love myself more and to give the other person more grace. So I'm more curious about what the challenge is, and I see as an opportunity for growth.
Oh, like, that's right. It's hard when we're young because, of course, we take it personally. And also, one of the beautiful things about being younger anyway, is that you accumulate a series of first experiences. And so every time something's new, you've never done before. So, there's nothing that's sitting behind you that says, this is how this is probably going to play out. And so everything feels personal. And then once you've done it a few times and once you've kind of seen the way various personality types around you deal with things, you're like, oh, this is probably actually not very much about me at all. And in fact, like how you are to me is how you are with yourself. And when you think about that, the person sitting across from you, their behavior is communicating what is going on for them. And, it's a hard moment to say, I probably don't matter that much, but probably not. And probably like you, like when I'm helping people, put themselves out there, let's say, I want to launch a thing. I want to launch a business. I want to launch a podcast. I want to, push send on something. And, all the fear and the doubt and the stuff creeps in, and I'm like, no one's going to remember. And probably no one's really going to care. This is actually like all about you and what's going on for you. And the same is true for everybody else. And that is just, I find it when you like hit that point in life where you realize that, it's such a relief because you're carrying a lot of nothing that feels really heavy. And it's just quite, it's a lightening of the load when you kind of hit that point in life.
Yeah, I love that. The lightening of the load. It is really heavy. And the other thing is that, as you mentioned, it's not like I wouldn't want to speed through life, but I will say that I'm grateful at the stage I am now. And one of the things I think of when I mentor some of the younger generation, I say to them, back to the quote that, oh my gosh, I cannot remember the famous person who did this quote, but it was basically, when I was in my 20s, I thought everyone was, thinking about me and my, it goes through that. And then suddenly I get to an age where I realize they're not even thinking about me anyways. They're just thinking about themselves. And that's really powerful. But the other thing that's powerful when you collaborate with someone is to also say, hey, look, I remember there are times in my life where I thought this one decision, like this one career decision or this one whatever, was the end all be all. And I stressed so much and I lost so much sleep and all of these things, right? And then now I actually don't even remember what the challenge was, like, right? And so
Totally.
I find that gives me comfort now, right?
Because that's because it's not the first time that things happen, and so we get to have that. Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
I want to backtrack a little bit. First off, I want people, as we're talking about getting to know humans as humans, we want to know Jonathan as a human being. So we're going to talk a lot about your career and your success and your work with boards. I'm very excited to talk about that and culture. And of course, at the end, the rapid five. But let's start right now with who are you as a human being?
More settled. I'm a more settled human than I have probably ever been. I'm a dad. I have two beautiful daughters. My eldest kid is autistic and trans, and that is an important part of who I've become as a person and as a dad. It's been a big journey, a neurodiverse journey and a parenting journey and a gender journey. So that's been a gift to me. On the career, I'm married. My wife Wendy is a therapist and a professor, and so I'm like especially gifted at being married to somebody that is a really, really excellent communicator, and so I'm very lucky in that respect, and I've probably benefited a lot from that. I'm also at heart I think an entrepreneur. I've started a bunch of businesses over the course of my second half of my career, and I like taking risks. I like supporting other people with decision making. And so that naturally finds me these days spending a lot of time on boards and supporting boards as a consultant and as an advisor. So I both sit on boards as an independent director. I'm on 4 boards. And I also do I do like consulting kind of work to support boards to be in a good way with one another around a board table, to support good decision making, good discussion, developing good strategy.
Okay, we haven't actually yet on this podcast done a lot of talking about boards. So I've had great boards advise some of my companies, and I've had really awful boards. And I tell the startup companies that I'm mentoring now when they're talking about raising money and the impact, and then you get someone on the board seat and all that. I'm like, okay, first off, not all money is good money, and not all board members are good board members. So remember that. So, 100%. But before we dig into that, you've worn many hats. You've been a founder, consultant, advisor, board director. When you look back, what are some of the pivotal leadership moments that shaped how you lead today?
I'd say the first was I got lifted up out of a kind of middle management position and put on the senior team of a big hospital. Huge organization, obviously 24/7, thousands and thousands of employees. And sitting on the senior team of that, we built a new institution, like a brand new hospital. So there was a huge capital project. We demolished the old one that was literally in the parking lot of the other one over the course of this time that I was there. I made it through 2 CEOs. So it was sort of like I sort of look back on that time as being like 3 free MBAs. Like it was just so exhausting. I would start my mornings, with physicians before rounds at 6:45, and I would roll out of there at 11 o'clock at night after the last of the audit and finance committee board members left. It was so unsustainable and a ridiculous level of intensity, but I was at a point in my career that it was so it was such a learning. I was just a sponge for all of it, and I'm super grateful for that. I've never regretted quitting. One day I was like, oh my god, I'm so done, and I just quit. And I've never regretted that because I hung out a shingle and became a management consultant and started a company when I did quit. But I cherish that time and the folks that taught me incredible lessons. Like I'll tell you one lesson that came to me during that, seeing as that was sort of your question. It was pretty early, and I was sort of still pretty scared. Like I'm a non-clinical person suddenly working. I was the head of communications, right, and planning and stuff like that. And so I'm like charging down the hallway of a hospital. And I don't know, maybe I'd been there not even a year. And a colleague of mine just said, hey, stop. And I look up, and she's there. And she's the head of all of the volunteers for the whole of the hospital. And she said, lift your head up. There are people in here that are really in a lot of pain, and you can help them on your way to wherever you're going. And that was the best
Oh,
piece of
wow.
advice that I had, ever at that place. Because it was like, yeah, like my life's stressful, but guess what? Somebody's about to go into surgery. Somebody's loved one is,
Right.
in pain. Somebody's scared. Like no one's in a hospital for a good time. And so I'm
Right.
charging down the hallway. Well, I can charge down the hallway, but lift my head up and look to help. Can I help you? Do you know where you're going? Do you know where you're going? I can be a good community member and a good responsive human in those spaces as I'm doing my work. And I thought back on that moment. Like she just called me out in such a big way. And I was really grateful for that.
I think that's such a brave also move for her to make, to speak up and give that impactful feedback.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm picturing
Yeah.
the moment in that, and I love it. And one of the things that I was reading this in one book, and it was talking about in their company, if you're within a certain distance of someone, you have to interject and speak to them and talk and say hi to them. And I try that now when I'm anywhere, and hence why, and I hire people and find out, how were they to the receptionist? How were they to the janitor that was
Right.
in? Like I know the
Yeah.
janitor who cleans my office is Mohammed, and I know what he did before he went to work at Emory. I know all about that. And I think just but what she said to you, just by pausing and looking up and smiling to people and
Yeah.
saying hello or saying hi is you just never know what that other person's going through. Even if you're not in the hospital, you could be in the grocery store. You can still be
Yeah.
kind.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great life lesson, and really, what she was like slow down, and be of service to people around you, and I think that is very transposable across, to your point, to many areas of life. Yeah, and we're just so busy. Our heads are down, and we're on our track, and we're
Yep.
doing the thing, and all around us are other people going through all kinds of stuff, and it doesn't take a lot to just give a little, and of course, it comes back tenfold, and it feels good.
Now, I had someone recently make a statement to me, and we were talking about one of the things I hate is these auto responses that we in the habit of making. Like, how are you doing today? Great. When maybe you're really not, maybe you're whatever. Or how was your weekend? Oh, it was good. Well, first off, I don't like that. I like to say, what was the biggest surprise of the weekend? Or what I like to ask questions that force them
Actually,
to
good
give
question.
an answer.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, actually. But one thing that was interesting is this gentleman said to me, he said, I don't like to ask how people are doing because I'm afraid that they're not going to give the robotic response, and they're actually going to tell me they're not doing well. And I don't know how to deal with that. What advice would you give to someone who struggles with that because when you mentioned earlier, we were talking about being at work, and you kind of talked a little bit about vulnerability and stuff like that at work. You didn't say
Yeah.
vulnerability, but you talked about the mechanism of it, and also said like work's not supposed to be a therapy office, so you have a balance there. So what advice would you give to someone who's in a leadership position and that's one of their biggest fears?
Yeah. Most people are just looking for connection. And so you don't have to do a lot to achieve that. So it can sound something like, hey, how's it going? Oh, actually, it's pretty difficult at the moment. Tell me more. And they'll say, well, I'm going through this thing at home. Like, oh, I don't want to get into it. And you're like, I have 2 minutes. Like, I don't have 10, but I have 2. Well, it's difficult with my parents. And, I'm also got this kid and the thing. And you're like, okay. So as you're hearing that, you don't have to solve their problem. You don't have to do anything. You just have to connect with them. And so that can just be simply by mirroring back what you just heard. Wow. So it sounds like your parents are going through a thing and you've got this thing with your kid. I imagine that's difficult, or that sounds hard, or how does that make you feel? Huh. Well, listen, I don't have any more time, but it was really great to connect. So we're just using some basic mirroring,
I love how you
some reflecting
and boundaries
back,
too.
and setting some boundaries around how much time you have and you don't have. That person is going to leave that very short conversation feeling heard and seen and valued. You don't need to solve their home life, and they're not going to dump their whole life on you because you set some boundaries. but you were kind. And those skills and those tools are not difficult, but you do have to practice them and you have to learn them. And so I work with a lot of leaders on just getting their deep listening skills sharpened. And for me, that looks like mirroring, reframing, summarizing, and just sitting in the pocket. Like so often what we're doing in conversation is waiting to speak. So you're telling me a story and I'm in a meeting and you're speaking. And I've got an idea that's percolating and I'm like, oh, I can feel it. It's coming. It's great. Now, as soon as that happens, I can't hear you anymore, Angela. I can't. My brain,
Yep.
I can't walk and chew gum. I've got this thing. You said something that triggered a thing for me. And so I'm like polishing this, like, oh, it's going to be beautiful when, like when I get in my turn in a minute here, well, I just, and I get the chairs,
I
get
love
the,
this.
I wave it, yeah, Jonathan, we'll get to you in a minute, and I'm like, I'm still polishing. I'm not listening. You've made 3 more excellent points. Oh, I haven't heard them. And then we finally get to me and I take the conversation back 7 minutes and I unroll my thing. But that's okay, because around the table, 4 other people are doing the exact same thing right now.
Yeah.
And that's the way we have meetings. And that's mostly why people say meetings suck. It's because we're not listening and we're not paying a ton of attention to what each of us is saying. We're just looking for our own opportunity to speak. And good meetings are meetings that are put well in balance because there's a good chair who puts lots of guardrails and creates conversation pathways that people can feed into as and when it's appropriate for them around their subject matter expertise or whatever else is going on. So I spend a lot of time with people because no one goes to school for this stuff. No one teaches anybody how to do this stuff unless you go to decide to become a coach or a therapist or something. These are kind of core skills in those professions, but we don't really learn how to do them at work. And everyone can benefit from them, whether it's the person that, like you said at the start, whether it's the person that just says, how you doing? And then they respond with, oh, actually not great. And then you freeze. Oh, I can't deal with conflict. That's hard. So I'm not even going to ask how people are doing. If that's where you're at, we can work with that because it doesn't need to be hard.
I was sitting with one leader, and one thing that I love, so it's Stan, is the COO of Southern Company and also a good friend. And I was in a meeting with him when we were presenting. And one skill that I noticed that he did was he took out, I think maybe one of his business cards or something, but he had something he didn't want to forget. So he just really quickly made a little note and then was fully engaged in the conversation. And then later he came back to this point that was a really impactful point, but he did that to get it so it wasn't percolating in his head and continue the conversation. And since I've seen him do that, I've had several instances where I've done the same thing because I thought, okay, there is something I want to make sure if it leads to it that I don't forget to say, but I don't need to interrupt your train of thought and what you're giving at this point. I can just scratch a note and then be fully engaged with you.
Totally. I think that's wonderful. And the body language is also communicating something, right? As soon as you stop yourself and you capture something down, like people that would hang out with him would get used to him doing that and probably know that it's his way of making sure he doesn't forget what he wants to say and or to write something down that somebody else has said that's important. But it's okay. He'll be back in just a sec. We know that. If you and I are new to each other and I did that, you might be like, what's dude doing there? Why isn't he paying attention to what I'm saying? Suddenly he's writing stuff down. He's not listening. Now, if I'm new to you and I was to say, I just don't want to lose that. That was awesome. Hang on a tick. And I write that down. Then I'm training you and I to be kind of attuned to the fact that and you actually feel more heard. Because facilitators know this. If you want to really make people feel heard, put folks around, a couple folks around the edge of the room, and they don't participate in the conversation. They just write down what happens. And at the end, they feed in to let everybody know what they heard. And there's all kinds of tools that you can use like that. And it's really, really rewarding as somebody that's participating in a conversation, having it fed back to you. And that's really what your colleague, your friend is kind of doing there. He's
Yes.
I'm validating you by writing down something, and I'm coming back super quick. So I love that. It's a really nice piece of like leadership style.
Yes, I love it. And one of the things I was just thinking is I first off, I'm a big fan of optimizing anything that's appropriate to optimize. And we talk about this day and age of AI. And when you're talking about the people in the corners of the room taking notes and then feeding it back, one of the things that I've noticed, especially this week, because I have a lot of team meetings and things where I need to give insight, is that the use of AI meeting note takers is such a blessing, because in the past, I would be so focused on trying to, okay, here's an action item, I need to write it down. Here's a note, I need to write it down. And then you're trying to keep the person still talking, and you're having this disconnect. Now, I don't do that at all. Like, I turn on my AI note taker and I'm 100% focused on the person and the conversation. And then I can address everything else later. So I think also utilizing tools in those ways to encourage engagement.
Yeah, and that works great. And there are some personality types, and some folks, frankly, like a lot of women, will take notes in meetings, and it's a way of them staying present, and they're thinking and they're writing down. And so a lot of leaders that I'm working with, like, they were just kind of taught, like, in the air. Like, it was just what you did. And so that's how they participate in meetings. Like, the notepads come out. And so folks become CEOs. And I'm like, who's taking the notes at your meeting? Like, when you're having a team meeting. And they're like, oh, it's me, because, it's just my natural way. Like, it's fine, I do it. I'm like,
it's what I've always done.
You need to delegate that, right? Like, you can't be fully present and chair a meeting and take the notes at the same time. P.S., somebody on your team, you would probably like them to be the one to action the actions and or hold other people accountable.
Yes.
You don't need to do that. So, like, they're little sort of funny societal things that also exist, but I'm kind of with you on the tools. Like, the AI note-taking really, really helps us stay more present and make sure that we don't forget things. I'm constantly amazed when I go back over a set of notes that came out from a meeting at how much I half heard, and the AI heard it all.
Yes.
And I'll be like,
yes.
We really spent 20 minutes on that. I didn't need the 20 minutes, but the other person did. And so I was kind of like only half there the whole time. But like, yeah, it was a big chunk of that meeting. And I see all the things that came out of it now. And so I find it a bit humbling because it's a kind of mirror as well. Yeah.
I love it. So one of the things that I use Fathom. And this is not an advertisement for Fathom. We're not sponsored by them, but Fathom, if you want to sponsor me, go ahead. But
Absolutely.
Anyways, the thing that I love, exactly. I was giggling a couple, like maybe last week or something, because what happens is it pops up and it tells you how much time it does like a red, yellow, green, and it tells how much, like, for example, in a Zoom meeting, how much time you're talking versus other people. And so one day I was in a meeting and I saw it pop up and my talking was really high. And so I said in the meeting, I said, okay, my AI note taker just told me I'm talking way too much. So I'm going to shut up. I want to hear somebody else talk. And I thought that was
really funny.
It was so much fun. And also like that mirror back as well. One of those additional tools to remember to engage the world.
Like sort of ethnographic research on ourselves in real time, right? Like it's very, But I mean, like if you're the person in the meeting with the power, like if you're the boss, that kind of mirror is an important thing to hear, because ideally you'd be talking 20% of the time, right? You'd be letting your team talk and all that kind of stuff. For those of us that are in those leadership positions in those ways, in a team meeting setting, I mean, there's lots of examples of when it would be totally appropriate to be speaking most of the time. So, I mean, it's very context dependent, but I hear you. I find the tool, I use Granola, and I find it fascinating how it organizes its themes and things coming out of a meeting. And I do find myself going back to them a lot. And in a way that I maybe didn't always go back to the notes as opposed to the actions out of handwritten notes. I find myself going back to the threads of discussion, which is good, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. So tell me if I have this wrong, because I have in my notes, speaking of notes, I I didn't do that on purpose. But I have in my notes that you sold your management company. Is that correct? Like, what did you learn in the process of building it, getting it to a certain size, and then deciding to sell it? What was that journey like?
Oh, Angela, so much. I learned so much.
So much.
First, I started by like, typical white guy energy. I was like, well, how hard can this be? I mean, I'll just start a thing. And turns out hard, actually. And so I kind of hung out a shingle. I won some jobs. I started to, create a kind of like brand position. I won too much work. I hired somebody. I won a bit too much work again. I hired somebody else. The company started to grow. I thought, you just keep hiring people and just keep winning work. And then of course, some things happened and forces in the marketplace shifted and suddenly I had too many people and not enough work. And I needed to do, layoffs, and that was heartbreaking. We had built a really beautiful workplace culture, and it was very, really traumatic for them. Obviously, they lost their jobs, but for me, as the person that had built the thing, I felt like I was letting people down, that I was going back on my word. It was very, very confronting. So I kind of had to put it all back together and rebuild it, and we did. We were a B Corp, so it was a social purpose company. And it was a management consulting company that only served nonprofit organizations across Canada. And so it was a really incredible 10-year journey. I got to the end where I realized, I remember the exact moment. I was on a vacation with my wife in Dublin, and we were walking and talking, with kind of that vacation immunity that you have. You start to think about your life in kind of broader ways when you're on holidays, And
yes.
And she said, I'm kind of getting tired. I don't know, I might be coming to the end. And she just looked at me and she said, well, you can't just give 2 weeks notice. You probably need a plan. And I was like, oh shit.
That is a grown-up moment when you experience that, because I think we forget how hard it is to be a founder, a CEO, a leader that has the responsibility of so many other people on your shoulder, and you can't just, some people do, but the great ones don't just do a 2-week notice. Yeah. So you started building out a plan. What did that look like for you?
Well,
and how hard was it to accept that?
So what I realized when Wendy had said that to me was that, there was somebody inside the company that I kind of thought was probably more than likely going to be the successor in some way, shape, or form, but I didn't know what that was like. And the more I started to think about it, the more I was like, no, I actually think I need a clean break. And I think that, the old line, I think I need to get off the stage while the crowd's still clapping. It felt like that for me. I'd rebuilt some things. I'd grown a new service line. The company was in a new and great spot. We had a good chunk of work in front of us to do. It felt like a nice moment. So I went into conversations with who's now the owner and CEO of the company, and I just said, I've been thinking about this. I might be coming to the end, and I'm wondering whether this was what you might like to do next with your career and life and stuff. And so I wasn't quite ready to give it up, and she wasn't quite ready to step forward. So it was perfect. We were both at the edge of our comfort. And so what we ended up doing was I said, why don't I step down as CEO? Why don't you step up? And I'll just keep working. I'll just keep doing projects, and I'll work for you, even though I still own it. And we'll see how the next year goes. And that's what we did. And so over the course of that year, the client sales,
had to have been hard.
It was hard because I, in my heart of hearts, didn't really want to go back and do a bunch of project work. I wasn't really, at that moment in time, I wasn't really like, oh man, sign me up for another 10 strat plans. I just wasn't really, I wasn't feeling it. But it was what I needed to do, and I'd done millions of them, and so it's something that I'm happy enough to do, and I did it. But she had a chance to experience what it was like to run the company. We needed to make it calm for clients, partners, and everybody else, that nothing was really going to change, that it was just a shift in leadership, that the company was still the company. And that set us up for a sale. So it was a management buyout. And that, kind of by the time it actually happened, nobody knew. Nobody really cared much. It was already obvious that she was running and it was hers. So it really worked out really, really well. They're notoriously hard to sell, management consulting companies, because the value is often locked in with the personality of the leader. And we'd built out training programs and systems that had allowed the company to not be about me. And so that was intentional, and that was me eventually being able to cash in on that design and that execution. So I felt good about that. But most importantly, it was lovely to hand this thing that had been built and grown over the course of 10 years to somebody else to take it on to its next parts of the journey. So what I like to talk about is that the financial part and the legal part, there's people to help you. It's fine. It feels like that's the hard part. That's not the hard part. The hard part is the emotional journey that you go through. It's a kind of grief because it's your identity. You've built this thing, whether you're meant to or not, as an expression of self. The things that you like and care about, everything from the bloody fonts on the website to the whatever you're doing, right? Like everything has been everything. You kind of like everything ultimately was your decision, right? So it becomes a sort of expression of yourself. And so letting go of all that is a kind of grief, and of course an acknowledgement that whoever you're handing it to and selling it to will become their expression of their self, and so things will change, and you might do it differently. You might have done it differently. You did do it differently, and that's going to be hard to let go of. And so that's actually the emotional labor to go through, is that part. And so that took probably. In my case, I was quite lucky because I was doing that while I still owned it. And honestly, there was this funny moment that happened. It was like quite close to the end. And I swear to God, I found it hard to get a meeting with people. Like, because everybody knew where the bread was buttered by that point, right? And I'm on my way out, and everybody knew that I was not the future, she was. And so it was like, I was like, hi, I still own the friggin' thing. Like, can somebody return my calls around here? Like,
right.
But, it all worked out. So I was able to kind of do some of that labor while I was still there. And then it was just about a personal journey for me. Like, who am I now? How do I want to, what do I want to do next? I'm not, like mid-50s, like I still have lots of time left. What am I going to do with my life and career? So it's been a kind of reinvention as I've cherry-picked the things that I've done before that I still want to do, and then include new things that I haven't done before into the mix. And I, as a friend of mine, Zovig, likes to say, like, I'm addicted to variety. And so I like to do lots of different things. That keeps me kind of engaged and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, I've never heard it called that, addicted to variety. I will say I just released a blog post where I talked about hobbies and about I have a lot of different hobbies. And, in order to become an expert in something, you need to spend 10,000 hours, doing it, right? That's the science behind it. Yeah, right. And so yes, exactly. I had someone ask me because they pulled up my website and they said, you're a beekeeper, a blacksmith, a wood turner, like all of these things, right? Wow. And he said, but everyone tells me I should just focus on one thing. And I said, you know what? Here's the deal. I'm all about enjoying the things I love in life. I love the challenge of trying something new. I love the variety. I love that I meet different types of people in each of the things that I'm doing. And so I have chosen to do that, that expert of variety role. And it's added so much value to my life.
That's so cool. I feel like I want to ask you about beekeeping and blacksmithing and all the things now.
All of those things are so much fun. What's your favorite hobby?
So I read a lot. My eldest kid, who I mentioned is autistic, always has a deep special interest, and at the moment it's birding. And so I had no interest in birding.
I do not have the patience for that. Me neither.
I have no choice. So I go birding now with my kid, and she's like right into it. So I have learned all kinds of things about birds that I never knew I cared about, and but that's been what it's like to be her dad. Anyway, my whole life I've been dragged along into all kinds of weird and wonderful things that I never would have been exposed to. So I hear you on the variety. Like I think I'm naturally a generalist, and I'm curious about lots of things. And so for me, it's about making sure that if I'm going to pick something within a business context, that I'm committed enough to see it through. all the way. And so I do spend quite a bit of time, like dating an idea, if that even makes sense. Like I wanna stay in the early phase for a long time to see whether I remain interested in it long enough to invest in it, both time, money, expertise, resources. So I tend to sit with stuff on a lot of things on the back burner, and I'm just like suspicious of them almost for quite a long time before I'm like, yeah, this is the thing, we're doing it. Right.
How do you handle the discipline to do that? Because I believe that it takes a lot, and it could be that depending on the personality, it takes a lot of discipline. For me, that takes a lot of discipline because I'm the type where I will analyze something and play the story forward in a multiple different ways and then try and figure out, okay, this path is the path that I want to go. And then I'm going. I'm full-fledged going. You know, I will make a decision very quickly. And I've also had the pain of then later saying, oh, I probably should have dated that a little longer. But anyways, how do you find the discipline to do that?
That's interesting. I think maybe I've gotten better at it over the years. My methodology, I've never really thought about this before, but I know where it comes from. So coming out of university, all I wanted to do was be a writer. And so I've written 7 books. I've written 3 novels and a collection of short stories and 3 books of poetry. And a novel is a big commitment. Like if you're going to write, like I've written 3 literary novels, and they take, 3 to 5 years to, from concept to the book coming out. And you really, really got to date that idea for a long time. Because if you don't, and I've done this, you can write 70 pages and go, yeah, no, this isn't a thing. I've lost interest in this story. And that translates for me into business. Like a colleague and I are thinking about something at the moment. It's got to do with governance and boards and stuff. And we've got like a service-based business that, might be a thing, and we're just trying to figure it out. And she's fairly similar to me in that we're just circling it. And we've had planning days and we've whiteboarded and I'm like, let me do a landing page. Let me just see what that looks like if I write a landing page. And she's like, let me try and write, she's kind of an academic. So she is an academic, sorry. And let me write an abstract. Like if I was going to write this as a sort of an academic article, like how would it look, And so we're both doing our version of the same thing, which is like kind of dating the idea. And at some point, I'm a believer in test the market and see whether somebody will pay you some money for something. And if they will, there's no better proof than the exchange of money for goods and services. It's real if somebody will buy it. And even beta, some sort of beta product, beta version of something. If somebody's willing to pay good money for it and go through whatever service or whatever product that you've created, then to me, then you can start to say, yeah, this is a real thing. Otherwise, you're living in, pre-concept fantasy land. And I work with lots of people that come to me that have hopes and dreams of doing things, and they can't get past that part. They want to build it out fully and completely in every way, but haven't actually exposed it to the rough and tumble, of the marketplace, right? Which is people going, nah, I don't want that. Or I'd like this, but this. Like, could you do this? And you're like, and that just happens a lot, eh?
Well, welcome to my world. In my day job, I manage a program out of Georgia Tech and Emory where we commercialize medical technology. So we met right now we have 5 teams we're working with towards commercialization. And one of the things I see repeatedly is that individuals, well, first off, everyone loves their baby because their baby's beautiful. So heaven forbid someone tell you your baby's not beautiful, right? That would be the world's end. And the other thing is that sometimes it's really hard for young entrepreneurs to understand that the person who might benefit or might use the product is not necessarily the person who's paying or approving the product. So understanding that value chain and understanding who your users are, who your recommenders are, and who your payers are, and what value they need to see exhibited in order to buy into your product. And oftentimes I see they think, well, the patient, for example, the patient's going to scream so loud for this that they'll have to make it happen. That rarely is the case. There are so many areas along that value chain that need to be identified very methodically to lead towards success.
Yes, times 10 to everything you just said. I spend so much time. I like people. It's funny. Like I don't ever look for other folks that have practices. Like I have kind of like a consulting advisory practice. Is basically what I do, and people come to me all the time that are trying to build their own, but are sort of like 10 years behind me or whatever. And these are the exact things that you just talked about are the things that they struggle with, right? Like I just go say yes to whatever somebody, just go be a problem solver. Just go be with the people and teach them to pay you money. A little bit. Just start by transacting.
Right.
Just something. Because right now it's just in your head and you're learning nothing. You're by yourself and you're having a conversation with yourself. Like nothing is happening. Like conceptually, sure, it might work. You should try sell it. Like for something. Yeah. So interesting.
Yeah, you absolutely should. Speaking of going back 7 minutes in a conversation, I was just reminded of something when you were talking about selling your management company. One of the things that you said that I loved was that you purposely built things into the company that would make it stable, so it wasn't just Jonathan was excellent at this. You built processes, procedures, or whatever it is. And I'm a big believer in that. Like, I'm a big believer in always build things so somebody else can jump right in and then they can make it better. And so I'm curious about this. When you step down and the lady who went into the CEO position and she started running the company, can you think of an example of something that she changed and you looked at it and said, wow, she's made this better?
Oh, tons of stuff. Yeah, like we had a core kind of like a core process that did strategic planning in a certain way, and I built it so it was perfect, right? Right. She changed a pretty big chunk of it that she had watched not work well despite my protests over the course of several years right away, pretty much when she and I was like, that's dumb, they won't like that, and they did. It was great. Like I was just wrong. So, I mean, yes. And like, there's lots of humble pie to eat along the way as you go through a transition, any kind of leadership transition. And I think that you just have to assume it's going to be, you assume it's going to happen and it's going to be 3 times as big as you expect because it just will be. You can't the old ego's in there, right? Like even enlightened, self-aware humans are going to be like, oh, hurt my feeling. Can happen, right? So, yeah.
But the faster you can shift to understand, like when I think about that, so for example, I just hired a new associate director and I said to her as soon as she started, I was like, look, here's the deal. I started building these things out in Asana, but now you own it. You can tear down whatever, or also if we're doing a process and you think this is really stupid, why are we doing this? We don't have to continue to do that process. We can make it better. And I think at my stage in life now, when I then see her change something and make it better, I now have this freedom to have a sense of pride because I think, wait, I hired a badass woman who's crushing it and I allowed her to be her best self.
Yeah, and it's sort of what you point your like early on in life you point your ego at the thing that you built, but later on you point it at the person you hired, and like
that's powerful.
So you, like what I just heard you say was that I'm proud of that I had the courage, foresight and wisdom to hire somebody that would be able to do this even better than me, and when she starts to do that, I take that as a sign of success. Other people, though, would take that as a sign of disrespect, that they weren't, every boss forever says, oh, you should just make this your own and do better. And people go, really? I don't actually really believe you. I'm going to try a little bit. and see what happens.
Right.
Oh, actually, let me give you the history on that, you know? And then you're like, oh, okay.
Right.
So actually, we don't really mean that.
Never
What we
mind.
mean is keep doing it my way, and I'll keep saying words like you should make it your own, but don't. And that pattern plays itself out a lot. But when people find, when they test, it sounds like, when she's going to test you and you throw accelerant on that, oh my God, that's amazing. Keep doing that. Oh yeah, for sure. I just built that quickly. Like you should keep making that better and test it and iterate. Then she's like, oh, this one actually means it. And in fact, she's encouraging me and I get rewarded when I do more of that. So I'm going to keep doing that. That's culture shaping, right? Culture changing because other people are watching that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's powerful. Okay. Speaking of a couple of things I want to make sure, and we are going to get to the board discussion because I'm passionate about board's dynamics. But first,
sure.
I'm also passionate about conflict resolution, and
Okay.
I love conflict. I am not afraid of it at all. I think there is
Great.
such a healthy value in helping teams, individuals, leaders, organizations, companies understand the value of conflict and how it can drive greater levels of success. So I want to hear from you. What is your perspective on conflict? And when you're working with teams and with management and, whoever it is you're mentoring in your current roles, what are some of the things you help teach them on how to manage conflict?
I'm going to answer your question, but I want to ask one first. Has that always been true for you?
Okay,
or
perfect.
Did you learn that at some point?
It's such a great question. Yes. So I was interviewed once and they were asking me about this because people know that I love conflict.
Okay.
And I thought, wait, let me think about this. Where did this come from? And it came from a couple of things. One, as most of us, we have our childhood experiences that have a huge impact on us. And I was unfortunately raised in a very abusive family. And I wasn't able to engage. I wasn't able to defend myself or engage in conflict, right?
Okay.
But I always wanted to, right? I had that in it. And so then slowly when I left the nest, right, and got into the world, I started identifying that, wait, I have a voice. And if I can figure out a way for them to hear my voice in a way that they'll accept it or they want to hear or they'll become curious, then it benefits all of us. So it was definitely a growth pattern, but it was really one of those moments in my life where I was taking back a piece of who I was as a human.
Okay. Yeah, I was just really curious. Most people are either they'll say, I'm not good at conflict. I don't like conflict. Or they don't even know that about themselves. They're just not good at it. So I don't come across people who say, I like conflict. I'm good at it that often. So I was just super curious. I wanted to hear whether that was a self-taught thing or a moment or, like a mentor or how you came to that. Yeah, so conflict comes up all the time. In my practice, what I typically am doing with executives is scripting moments of conflict for them. So whenever we experience conflict, things happen in our body somatically, right? Like usually flight, fright, freeze responses, right, happen, right? We power down, we go on the attack. These are things that have happened to us from way back when. It's mommy, daddy stuff. It's maybe early career stuff. Whatever's going on is the pattern that happens in our bodies over the course of time. And we can do a lot of therapy and a lot of work to understand, I'm doing that again. Like I noticed that, right? Like you can do a lot of mindfulness work and get a lot better at it. But what to do on Tuesday morning when I'm having the meeting with the guy, like that's mostly what shows up in my practice. And so I'll script out stuff with people. I'll be him. What's he like? Tell me all about him. How does he behave? What's his MO? How's he roll? And they're usually describing personality types and or things that I kind of like. I have an avatar in my head of how that kind of person is going to be and what is the way that they'll operate. And I'm like, how are you going to enter this conversation? What's it looking like? And what do we want out of it? Like, what does success look like? So then sometimes we can reverse engineer what a successful conversation can look like. I just want him to, say yes, or I just want him to understand and hear my point of view, or I want to collaborate on this thing and he keeps pushing me away. Whatever the set of conflict and circumstances are. And so I'm like, okay, so if this is where we want to get to, like, start. And usually they'll start, meekly or on the attack or whatever they're going to do. And I'll be like, okay, so here's what's going on from me. I'm being him now. I'm shutting down, or I'm going on the attack, or I'm going to argue the data, or and that, yes, that's exactly what he does. I'm like, okay, so let's not make me do that then. How could you make me not behave like that? And they'll be like, I guess I could say something different. I'm like, let's start relationally. Maybe ask me how my friggin' weekend was. Like, let's just maybe connect before we get into business. And
actually listen to the response.
Yeah, that's right. So, how was your weekend? Oh, it was fine. The kids' soccer. Did they win? Oh, wait, you care about my kid? Because that's the number one thing in my life. You just wanted to hear whether or not he won. He scored a goal. Oh, my God. Were you a proud dad?
Yeah, that's awesome.
It really was. Oh, my God, that's so amazing. Okay, so we're already halfway down the track with literally 15 seconds of conversation because you've just opened up my heart. I've just seen you as a person. You've just seen me as a person. So what are we meeting about today? And then we'll get into it, right? Then I can help them with a couple branches. If he goes here, then go here. And we practice and we go backwards and forwards. And it's never as bad as the hardest version of whatever I do for them in the conversation as happens in real life. They come back to the next session and they'll be like, oh my God, it was a piece of cake. It was fine. You remember the easy way? That's what he did. I'm like, great. What'd you learn?
One of my goals with conflict is I want the other person to become curious. And I navigate through that by showing curiosity myself. And so I love just even what you were just saying, starting off with, hey, let's first be curious about each other as human beings. And that, I'm interested in that type of piece. And then maybe curious. And oh my gosh, one of my favorite phrases is, what does success look like? Love. Amazing to build that into that.
Yeah.
Can you share an example of when this really worked well for you?
Hundreds of times. Yeah. I mean, just sitting in the pocket of curiosity, for me in conversation, especially around board tables, for example, the first thing that's happening in my head as the answer or the solution almost certainly isn't correct. It's almost always the wrong answer to the wrong question. So staying patient with it until I'm looking for what is motivating, what are the needs that are happening in front of me. Everybody's got wants, but actually getting people's needs met is really the secret to things. And so what's going on for that person? Why are they advocating so hard for this position? So I'm getting curious around that. So I'm asking questions like, I think I need to know more about that. Tell me what went into your thinking. Can you describe to me a bit more about your background and why you know about this? Help me get more of this. I'm just staying in the pocket of curiosity and I'm peppering them with questions. Because what I'm really trying to learn is why are they personally connected to this? Why do they want this? Why does it matter? And sometimes it's for great reasons. And sometimes it's ego. Sometimes it's defensive. Sometimes it's not good reasons. So I need to move them away from that, but I don't know yet. So I'm trying to keep the horses in the barn and not start solving problems, right? I'm a guy, so I'm programmed to show up and start solving, right? So we have to fix that for me.
True.
So everybody, right. that's your work, I think, especially, is it a white man, like the world programmed us to think that, we're the shit and we've got the solution. No, we don't. And so just slowing down and getting really curious and asking lots of questions is really, really helpful. And then trying to get people to express their needs is really good. And I love questions like, what if this goes great, what are we going to have done? How will we know it's successful? And that is a strategic kind of question, but it allows people to articulate what the fuzzy thing that's in their head as what good looks like. It starts to come out and other people can participate. So, there's some of the things that, one of the questions that I gift to everybody that I use all the time, and if you're in sales, this gift is for you. The question is, what have you already tried? That question is a get out of jail card for not being an idiot in almost any set of circumstances. So the defense against, I totally know where this is going, I know how to solve this, right? Is tell me what you've already tried, Angela. And you're going to give me everything that you already tried that hasn't worked. And you know what I won't say? One of the things that was in my head, because I'm thinking of the thing you've already tried. Because guess what? You're smart and you've already tried all the obvious things. And if I say that and I'm like, oh my God, you know what you should do is blah, 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 blah. And you're like, dude, we've tried that like 3 times. It doesn't work. You didn't hear me. So to stop yourself from saying that, what have you already tried is a great question.
Oh my gosh, that is definitely a snippet. Katie, that needs to be a magic clip. I love that right there. That is a gift.
You're welcome.
Katie's the amazing producer of this podcast. All I do is have great conversations with people.
Sure.
She makes the magic happen.
It's great.
But yeah, wow, what have you already tried? And I'm picturing myself saying that in a conversation where I could see you collaborating with someone and saying, I know you've worked really hard on this and you're really vested in it. So let's look at what you've already tried and evaluate that and then see if we have some ideas to go forward. And I just think if I heard someone say that, I would let so much of my guard down.
Yeah.
And I just, and back to, I love the comment you made about the somatic experiences. I want more of the world to start identifying within themselves how they're feeling in certain situations. So like, is a conversation making you feel like there's an elephant on your chest or your stomach is in knots or,
Totally.
you've got goosebumps or whatever. But those couple of things are amazing. Okay, we have to talk about boards. So I have in my notes that you love relational governance. Is that right? And what does that mean to you?
Relational governance to me is where boards of directors are paying attention to a mode of being which is with one another. So when we're in good relationship with one another, we're going to have better conversations and make better decisions. There are existing well-trodden, well-understood modes of governance, and I'll just run through them. The first is like a fiduciary mode of governance, which is compliance-based, right? There's rules, bylaws, standards of practice, things against which we need to benchmark our performance, all that kind of good stuff. Lots of boards spend a lot of time trying to get good at that. The next mode is strategic, and so that's where we're thinking about the future. Where's this company going? Where's this organization going? It could be in the context of strategic planning. It could be just a strategic discussion at a board. Also great. The last that has been worked on for many years is generative governance, which is how do we just think? How do we just have good conversations that are created within a container of openness? And we can just, it's not like in service of a strategy. It's like, how do we just be good at thinking and conceptually thinking about the things that are important to us, whether it's competitors or whether it's, the environment or whatever's going on around us. And, for me, like the next horizon in governance is really around relational governance. Is that, guess what? We're 12 people around a table, but we all had childhoods and we all have families now and we all have other things going on in our life and we don't artificially check them at the door. We show up and we need to be in intentional relationship with one another. And there are things we can do to do better work at that. And where this comes from me is that I do a lot of work with Indigenous organizations and nations in Canada. And so I am often in rooms with Indigenous folks and they do meetings differently and they do business differently. And it expresses itself in a way that I just have learned so much from. And so I'm on a board of directors right now. It's 51% Indigenous people and 49% non-Indigenous people. And I co-chair it with an Indigenous person, a colleague of mine. And the way we host our meetings, the way we hold space for our meetings is just so different. There's a lot of what looks like visiting at the start. And for you and I, we might sort of look at that and go, why are we wasting all this time just sort of chit-chatting? But actually what they're doing is they're attuning to each other and they're finding out what's happening with my elder and what's happening with your kid and where's, what else have you heard and how is the harvest going and what's going on? And so all of that is allowing them to get in sync with one another. And then they have the meeting. And so their meeting was great. They have better meetings because they've seen each other as people first. Whereas, you and I show up to a meeting, we're like, right down to business. Okay, let's get out the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda? Great. Boom. Everybody read the minutes. Good. And you know what we're doing at the 15-minute mark? Snippy, passive-aggressive remarks because we haven't seen each other, because we're hangry, because whatever. And that's what meetings are like. It's why people don't like meetings. But if you think about it, what is a meeting? It's a group of people coming together in common cause to understand, to think, to be together, to make decisions together. I mean, it's a part of humanity. There's nothing wrong with meetings. It's just about who we are and how we do them that, has become artificially, sort of devoid of just goodness.
I love this. I will correct you on one thing, though, Jonathan. Here's my conflict piece. I am just like they are. So if you're in a meeting with me, we're going to spend the first 5 to 10 minutes talking about whatever. We're going to talk about life. And I've had people, executives in those meetings, and I can see on their face they're starting to get annoyed. Come on, I came here for business. And I am just no. We're going to get to know each other as humans, where we are today, how we're showing up in this space. And I think, too, I love the book Culture Map. And the thing I love about it is also understanding the way that certain cultures are and how you show up with them. So if I'm having a meeting with someone I just recently met with a delegation from Korea, and they're very much, I need to see that face kind of thing like you would see in China or whatnot, this relationship piece first and understand that. And then we get down to business. And then there are some other cultures that are, as you mentioned, more getting down to business. So I find for myself, it's harder for me because I need to be very delicate because I insist on having the people part first. But I might do it a little different in some of those cultures that are get down to business first. And the other ones I'll be much more relaxed for. But I love that because we get too busy just saying, what are you going to do for me mentality versus how are we spending this time together?
Yeah, we do it from time to time. And also, I will say, we'll eat before a board meeting, and we'll kill an hour before we start meeting. So it's pretty long. Yeah. But to your point, I think there's lots we can take out of these examples that can make for better meetings in other contexts, and just to be an increased relationship at the start of meetings can just grease the wheels for a better meeting. We're just going to see each other. We're just going to have better conflict. It's not that we're not going to have conflict. It's just going to be more human. And I'm going to stay more curious for longer. And I'm going to hear you better and for longer. I'm going to forgive you more often. I'm going to stay more generous. And all of that is going to have you, have time to express yourself a little better, create and absorb some of your own doubts around issues that you're having. All of that's healthy and good stuff.
So one of the things we're talking right now about boards, but all of this applies to all types of meetings. And I would say especially one-on-one meetings with your team members. And so I love this software called Lattice. I don't use it now because I have too small of a team, but I've used it in my previous companies. And you can pre-program and also toggle questions for your one-on-ones. And I would coach managers and leaders to say, okay, look, when you do your one-on-ones, I do not want you to go to your action items first. Toggle and do one of the creative questions that happens first and kick that off with your meeting with something that is engaging, fun, and all of those pieces. So I think that's good advice for any meeting.
Yeah, I do too. I think one-on-ones are notoriously complex for people, especially new managers. We just don't get taught how to have a successful one-on-one. Mostly when I'm helping folks with it, I'm like, if you're doing the talking in a one-on-one, you're not doing it great. Then it's just top-down stuff. You should be asking questions. You should be listening. What have you already tried is a great one-on-one question. because people are going to come to you with a series of problems. And if you ask them, what have you already tried? If the answer is kind of nothing, they won't do that very often again. They'll come to you having tried something.
Exactly.
They will.
Jonathan,
like,
that
they
is
don't
my
wanna,
favorite thing that I've heard today.
Yeah, I mean it's a great question, because like if you're sitting there and they're like, okay, here's the thing, and it's like the old line, like, don't come to me with problems, come to me with solutions. That's hard on people because
Yes.
like they don't have the authority to create a solution, or they don't have the resources or the experience to create a solution. Like, you're the boss, and maybe you don't either. P.S. So I don't love that. It feels really hierarchical and stuff to me. So a better question is, what have you already tried? Because, that gives an assumption and some freedom to try something. And you're like, maybe the answer is, I haven't tried anything, but here's what I've thought of. Like, even that is something to work with. And you're like, cool, like, walk me through your ideas. What's your thinking? Interesting. If you had to choose one of these three and you were to make me a recommendation, which one would you lean towards and why?
Yes, and why?
Okay.
Yes.
I'm sitting here thinking that sounds like a pretty good idea, so why don't we agree with you and you go do that? And so you've just empowered somebody to build a series of scenarios to pick the one, and then you've just supported their recommendation. And you did it all in 2 seconds and in a simple way. What you're training them to do is they'll come over time, they'll come to you and they'll say, I've written you a briefing note. At the bottom, are you going to see I've thought of 3 options? I'm recommending option 2 and I've costed out option 2. I'd really like to go ahead. I can probably start next week. What do you say? And you're like, why are you even asking me? Just go do it.
And it's a level of trust, right? And what I would say to my teams when they wanted me to approve something or they had a problem, and I would say, okay, I only want like 3 slides. The first one, here's the problem. Second slide is, here are like 3 things that we evaluated and looked at. And the third slide is, this is what we're recommending. And I say to them, like, look, I don't need hours of justification. Like, you can have all that information. If we want to dig in, fine. But I don't want you to have to come in and feel like you're constantly having to justify something. Just give me those 3 slides and we're good to go, and go crush it.
I think I love that. Like, the best decision making like scenario I've ever been in my life was like we would have to be like the manager on call at the hospital, and it was just, if you were in any leadership position at the top, you just had to have your phone next to your bed in case somebody had something super important that they needed to do at 2 a.m. And the nurses would mess with you, like they would call you up and they would say, hey, like we have to do blah, blah, blah. Like, can we do X, Y, or Z? And what you quickly figure out is, of course, clinically, I have no ability to anything. All I have is the purse strings, and I don't know what's right or wrong. And so really the only answer to any question is, if it was 2 p.m. and you were speaking to your boss, what would he or she say? And they'd be like, then I can do it. I'm like, that sounds like a great answer. Where you go? And they never call you again, right?
Let's do it.
So, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is priceless. I cringe. I will tell you this. I know this about me as a human. I cannot take a job where I have to have the phone on at 2 a.m. And everyone who knows me also knows they do not call me at like 7:30 in the morning either, because this girl is not at her best.
Not it, eh? Yeah. Funny.
No. Okay, so going back to boards, what advice, in thinking about the dynamics that you've seen in boards, and going back to, I'm a strong believer, like there are some great boards and I've had some really awful boards, and the impact of the board on the organization can be huge. So how would you recommend? I have a lot of individuals that come up and they want to be on their first board, or they're about to be on their first board. What advice or what mistakes would you encourage them to skip over with their first board seat?
Being on a board is not the same as being on a senior leadership team. And it's not the same as being a founder or entrepreneur. It's a different thing. And so there's different kinds of boards. Maybe in the startup space, we've got advisory boards that are non-fiduciary. So it's the same as kind of just being like a mentor to this startup company, and you're up here. And they can be structured in lots of different ways. Some of them are paid, some of them are volunteered, some of them have equity, some of them are paid like just in cash. Really, really understand what the rules are of this board that you're joining, and stay in your lane. So if it's to provide strategic questions, oversight, wisdom, then be that. Don't get down into the weeds of the business. If it's some hybrid type of board, just make sure that you know where the delegations of authority lie and where the boundaries are, and be really respectful of what those rules are, because you just want to be in service of the company, of the organization, and that's really it. So context is kind of everything, I think. If you're on a board that's like a more established company or a more established or larger not-for-profit organization, then they tend to be fiduciary boards. So you have legal oversight over the, you have legal oversight over the controls of the company. And so you're going to have one employee who's going to probably be the CEO, and they're going to bring it all to you. And as a fiduciary board, you're thinking about all kinds of things that I talked about earlier: risk, strategy, performance management, all the things. That work is about you and your colleagues being in service of, this institution or this organization. It's a journey. Every board is different, and boards evolve over time. They go on a kind of journey themselves, and it's not necessarily gently up and to the right. They often do this, and because there's only 7, 10 people around the table, if you switch out 3, suddenly the whole place is different. And so board and board rooms and the culture of boards really go on a lot of journey. In terms of preparing yourself for it, I'm a big believer in sitting on not-for-profit boards. It is a good way to learn what it's like to sit around a table and to make collective decision making. You're never too young to start sitting on small local nonprofit boards. I often say to young people, in your 20s, boards are desperate to get young people, especially like local community-based boards, maybe healthcare, maybe social services, maybe arts and culture. They're just desperate to get board members that are not 75 and retired on their boards. And so, yes, you don't have a ton of experience, but they still need your voice. And it is the fastest way to get leadership experience. And it will be a really awesome track. Imagine your interview 5 years from now. You'll be able to talk about your career progression and your board work. You're literally going to be the boss of the CEO of that organization or the executive director of that nonprofit. You're going to learn. You're going to have budgeting experience. You're going to probably hire and fire a CEO. Like so much access to what is not 15 years away from you in your career right now. You can do it right now. And so, it will show up in your demeanor. It really is. It's a really, really great thing to do. So I tell young people that all the time. Don't think that you're not ready. You are. You're ready. And they'd be thrilled. You'll know more about AI and social media than anyone around the board will. And so that can be really helpful. So there's a few things, Angela.
No, those are great. Those are great. One of the things that you said that I really want to capture for the culture of a board or an individual who's on the board is that regardless of if you're in a board for a nonprofit or in a advisory position or in a fiduciary position, if you're on a board, your job is a job of service. And I think just remembering that you're serving another need, another group, another whatever, and it is, and also being able to convey that spirit of service and that piece of it, I think can have so much career and personal growth, especially, for a young person. Absolutely. I love that idea. Are you ready for some rapid fire questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Okay.
What is one myth about leadership you wish would die?
That culture eats strategy for breakfast. I just friggin' hate that quote.
Oh, okay. It's supposed to be rapid fire, but now I want to know why you hate that quote. Tell me more.
Because I think it's a throwaway line, and I think it's not really true. And I don't even think Drucker said it, to be honest with you. I just think it's a way that management can go, it's the people's fault. Well, guess what? You're leading them. And if they aren't coming along, then it ain't your strategy's fault. It's your leadership's fault. And so I just think it's like a hollow... it's like a thought terminating cliche almost, like it's just,
Okay, so listeners, if you agree or disagree, make sure you put in the comments. Jonathan and I are dying to know what your thoughts are on that. Okay, next thing, a leadership lesson you learned the hard way.
There's a great line out of a Hemingway novel, which is one character says to another, "How did you go bankrupt?" And the other character says, "Slowly, then suddenly." And the thing that I learned the hard way is when the cost curve is starting to bend down, it speeds up, and you can't get at it too early. And I was able to bend it, but man, I could have done it earlier had I known more and had I acted more quickly. And so I'm always on the lookout for the excuses for early bad signals and to get on them right away.
That's brilliant. Okay, what book has influenced your leadership most? And you can list more than one if you want, because I know you and I both love books.
Yeah, I do. I was very early to Simon Sinek, like right when he first came out, and so putting the why at the center of the circle was really influential to me 15 years ago. That really impacted me. It spun me up for sure. What else? I've read so many books. I think Amy Emerson's book about psychological safety, that maybe I read 4 or 5 years ago, that really impacted me too. It gave language and a framework to understand what is actually happening inside workplaces. So there too, yeah.
I love it. Okay. And one of the things about Simon Sinek and his start with why that a lot of people don't understand, it goes back to this idea that someone just became famous and popular overnight. When you listen to him talk about it, he'd been giving that lecture Start With Why, although a longer version of it, for years before he did his TED Talk. And then he suddenly did the TED Talk and had to, crunch it down. Also, another note is Simon Sinek hates to read books. And I believe he may have only really, aside from the books that he's written, I believe he's only read like 1 or 2 books in his whole life. So, anyways,
oh my God, I had not heard that. That's interesting. Wow.
Yes,
okay,
yes. I love Simon Sinek. I love his podcast, and I follow it. So, okay. So, in one word, what makes a leader badass?
Listening.
Okay, and finally, the 5th rapid fire. Who is a leader you admire and why?
I'm going to say this is personal. I have a very dear friend. Her name is Mariam Monsef. She's a former minister for the status of women in Canada. And she came over as an Afghan refugee when she was about 10 years old and rose through a series of hard-fought elections to become a cabinet minister at the age of 29. And to this day, she is such an inspiration for me. The courage that she shows and the thoughtfulness. She will be in high-powered meetings and just ask everybody to pause and think for a second, who's not invited into this room? And it's just she's the kind of leader that I just wish we had a lot more of. And I never leave time with her without thinking, I just learned something, or I just need more of that. And she's just a real human. So she's been like a personal inspiration for me for a long time. And I count her as a dear friend and a colleague and a client, and lots of intersections there. But like I really admire her.
That's powerful. Okay. The final requirement of this podcast is I love motivational quotes. I actually have them scattered throughout my whole house. I have a lot of motivational quotes tattooed on my body. I just believe surrounding ourselves.
Show us. No, okay.
Like here you can see my Be Brave, Be Badass. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
so,
right. That's great.
I will let people know I have Be Brave, Be Badass. I have the courage to do what is right. So the rest of mine are all in Mandarin. This one's the only one in English. So I have the courage to do what is right, undaunted by repeated setbacks, perseverance in the storm, and I think I have one other that I'm probably forgetting about. But anyways, I like those things because they remind me when I'm struggling in life that I can do this. Other people have done this before, And if I focus on the positive of what I can do, I can move forward.
So my question is, what's mine? Is that the question?
Yeah, the question is, what's your favorite motivational quote?
Okay. I think mine is, well, like I maybe have two that I whisper to myself. They may be even closer to mantras, but the first is "This too shall pass," which I think is important a lot because we live in things are loud and hard and big, and it's important to remember that the sun will come up tomorrow and that this too shall pass. And so, to me, it shouldn't be an excuse. It should just be a pause and a chance to take a beat and to just know that as hard as it seems right now, it probably won't in a week, it probably won't in a month, and you probably won't remember it in a year. So that's good. And I have a personal one that's kind of mine, which is lower the bar and achieve more often. And what I mean by that is sometimes we strive and we strive and we strive and we get lost in the striving, and lowering the bar and just achieving something feels great. And it doesn't need to be the next biggest, hardest thing. It can just be a step. And that feels important to me as well. So I lower the bar, achieve more often. Make it easier on yourself.
Well, I think it's also pausing for a moment, too, to celebrate the small wins and to not have our focus just on the big win, but to load up and start stacking those small wins upon each other. And instead, totally. I think when we set the bar too high, we think we don't celebrate along the way. And actually, what I see happen is we get to where it was, and then oftentimes those of us who are overachievers don't even celebrate when we cross the bar. We instead lift the bar and continue, right? And so I love that, Jonathan. Okay, Jonathan, what do you want to make sure that the listeners take away from our conversation today?
This has been great, by the way, Angela. I've really enjoyed this, and it's been a sort of a beautiful spiral of lots of things that I care a lot about. So I've really appreciated your questions and your attentiveness. I hope folks take away my one gifted question to you. What have you already tried? I hope folks think about what it's like to show up in conflict and just stay curious, stay in the pocket of curiosity, and think about how to ask more questions for longer. They feel like important things that we've talked about. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you for your time today. I'm a big believer in everything you say yes to means you had to say no to something else. So thank you for saying yes to us today. And also thank you for absolutely bringing the badass to this podcast today.
It's great. My absolute pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thanks for joining me for today's episode of the Badass Leaders Podcast. To hear more interviews with industry experts and learn how to grow your career and leadership potential, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to ensure you do not miss future episodes. This podcast is a production of the AGN Group. To learn more about the AGN Group, visit our website at theagnGroup.com. There, you can discover more about our services, which include hosting workshops, management consulting, brand strategy, keynote speaking, and more. Follow us on all social media channels shown on the screen and displayed in the show notes. And until next week, be brave and be badass.